Welcome to Best Life Ever, the podcast with your hosts, time and energy coaches, Kimi and Pua. Here at Best Life Ever, we are on a mission to expand the way people think, work, and live in today's modern world. Today, we have a special interview with Bryan Falchuk.
Bryan has a really inspiring story. He has had an amazing health and fitness transformation. He's faced nearly losing his wife to illness while their young son watched. He became a vegan in just one day and got his master's from a top school and rose to a senior executive position in a successful business. Today, Bryan is a best-selling author and contributor to Inc. magazine. He's transformed his life and developed an approach to help others do the same through his best-selling book, Do a Day. And he's here today to share that philosophy with all of you. Welcome to Best Life Ever, the podcast, Bryan Falchuk.
So nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to hear your story. And, you have an incredible, inspiring story and an amazing health transformation to share. And we'd love to hear about your, just to kick things off, your personal journey to wellness and just a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I started life, unfortunately, like most Americans or like half of Americans, in a family that was splitting up through divorce. And that was actually incredibly definitional for me. And I was really young, like 5 years old. So I didn't understand what an impact it was having on me. But I think kids have one basic desire in life, and that's to be taken care of at just a core level. And that was in jeopardy for me, or at least I perceived it to be. And so I turned to something else for comfort and stability, something that wasn't moving out or yelling and screaming or, just fighting and causing strife. And that was food. Like, it was always there. It never judged me. And so I went from being a, skinny, normal little kid to being basically like seriously obese. From a really young age, right through high school, and a lot of depression tied in with that. And that's kind of my backstory. That's where things started. So I was lucky enough to find someone who helped inspire me in high school. He ran the PE program, and he just really took a different approach. Everyone in any sort of physical activity setting had always been very judgmental, and he just wasn't like that at all. It was never negativity. It was all about inspiring and helping you figure things out for yourself. And it's really interesting that that's the approach that I take today with people that I coach and mentor. And that was that first exposure to that kind of way of being. And it worked so beautifully for me that I try to emulate that myself today. And that's, it's the style that I use in my book as well. But that was my teenage years. And like a ton of people, I gained some of that weight back, and I never looked obese again. I just say I looked American, like no one would notice. But, if you compare a picture of me today to how I was at like age 30, then it strikes you as like, wow, it was a lot heavier. And I was probably within like 30 or 40 pounds of my heaviest weight, but I just carried it differently. But there's this moment in 2011. I was almost 33. It was the summer before I turned 33. I had a 2-year-old son, and my wife, we didn't know it, but has a chronic illness, and it was all rearing its head then. And it got to this point where June 30th, 2011, she was bedridden. She'd been losing 2 pounds a day, and nothing could make it stop. And the doctors just were totally unhelpful. Her primary care physician was like, I'm going on vacation for 6 weeks. Let's talk when I'm back. And I was like, she can't get out of bed. She's losing 2 pounds a day. Like, literally, you can do the math. It's 2 pounds a day. She's not going to make it 6 weeks. And all he had to say was, oh, we'll just call the ER if that happens. I'm like, what? Like, this is just not okay. This is a wife and a mother and an amazing person, and you're just totally blasé about it. And he's like, well, maybe she's depressed. It's like, well, yeah, of course she is. How would you feel? And it's just not acceptable. And on this day, like after that call, I walked into our bedroom. My son was looking on at the bed where she was lying, and I was behind him. And it just struck me as like, this little boy is watching his mother die right before his eyes. And I was overweight again. I was depressed. I this is not what I expected of my life. Like, everyone who's married loses their spouse at some point unless they go first. And usually it's not when you're in your early 30s, just starting your family. So this is a really different situation than I ever expected to be in. And I didn't know how to handle it. I just realized, like, I'm completely failing this little boy, and he needs me now more than ever. And he's going to need me for the rest of his life, because it may just be me. And that power of that dedication and responsibility to him and my love for him just became such a clear motivation for me in my life in a way that I'd never had before. I woke up the next morning a completely changed person. It really was a light switch. Like, I went about everything much more mindful and tied into that motivation. Like, I suddenly had purpose. And it wasn't just about losing weight so people didn't look at me as the fat kid, which is what my motivation was the first time around. But, like, you know what? Eventually I stopped being around people who knew me that way. Like, when I went to college, no one knew me as the fat kid. So my motivation went away. It's like losing weight for beach season. Well, my beach season was over. So, like, why continue on that path if nothing's pushing you? But this time is different because he's not going anywhere. My responsibility to him will always be the same, and it will always be as profound. So that gives me a very real purpose in life. And I find that ties back in everything that I do. So that was very transformational. And that's like, when people ask my backstory, it's kind of a long one, but I think it's all really important. And that moment of figuring out my motivation and how I've lived my life since then, that's how I try to help people through my coaching work and through the book as well.
Wow. Bryan, that is, we always talk about the power of our experiences and of our story. And I know that there are so many people listening right now who are feeling a lot of feelings and emotions about this. And thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to share this with us and our listeners and people who are reading your book. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about this new journey in your life. And you have a book called Do a Day, and we're excited to learn more about that and learn how this experience that was so painful helped to shape the way that you serve the world now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I should say, I didn't say this yet. My wife is still alive.
Yay! We don't want to ask.
No, I should have been clear about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay.
And we both, not to be corny about like every cloud is a silver lining, but we have both changed dramatically and found different paths to wellness. So she's in a totally different place. And it was basically leaving the Western medicine world that had sort of sworn her off and seeking some alternative solutions that stopped that spiral and allowed her to start to heal. So we still deal with her illness. She's chronic Lyme disease. It's for some reason a very controversial thing that doctors don't like to acknowledge. I don't know why, but that makes getting help a lot harder. But she's in a totally different place, and she's just unbelievably inspiring to me and a really, really strong person. So we've both grown dramatically and tremendously just from what we've each experienced and how that's come back together. And, our son has benefited a huge amount from that because he's got two parents that I like to think are good role models for him about perseverance and dedication and achievement.
Totally.
Beautiful.
So with that like bit of positivity after a pretty difficult story, where does the book come in? And that's really this title, Do a Day. It's a philosophy that I've developed through this experience that I've been using in my own life since that day in 2011 and with people that I started coaching. So people watched my transformation, which was pretty rapid, through Facebook and whatnot. Friends would see what was happening, and they just started to reach out and they're like, I noticed what's going on with you. Can you talk to me about it? Can you help me? Or, I also feel like I'm pretty unhappy and need to lose weight. Can you help me with that? So it just sort of organically turned into more than just me doing something for myself, but also helping other people. And what I'm helping them with is this philosophy. And so Do a Day, it's about taking a mindful approach to life and to your challenges. So, we all really live with the weight of yesterday and tomorrow. So we sit here standing in judgment of things that we did before or negativity around things that have happened to us or we feel been done to us in the past. Mm-hmm. And then we act today a lot of times in relation to that negative view of yesterday. And at the same time, we've got all this fear or anticipation of tomorrow. And it could be negative things like, something bad that we're afraid is going to happen. And so we act differently and we act like sort of cowering, trying to keep away from the future because we're afraid of something coming to fruition. Or it could be something positive. We're so anticipating some great event that's yet to come that we end up missing out on everything right now. So it doesn't just have to be about bad stuff. It's anything that pulls you out of the right here and right now, which then means that you're not able to see the opportunities right in front of you. You're not able to act towards your goals. You're not able to really make the right choices for your long term in this very moment, because you're totally focused on the judgment of what you did before or some, anticipation of things that you think will come in the future.
Right.
And that's the heart of mindfulness, really. But the reality is the only thing we have is right now. And I don't mean to sound like whatever philosophical about it, but it's really true. Like tomorrow's never here because it's always right now, and yesterday's done. Mm-hmm. So if you're not living in the right here and right now, then what's your life really going to be about? So that's, in a nutshell, like once you get that core motivation, then it's about executing with this mindset of like, what can you do? What are you doing right here, right now that isn't being influenced by mistakes before? Because just because you did wrong before or you did something you're unhappy about doesn't mean you have to keep doing that. You learn, you grow, and you do better. And you don't have to just live your life, out of like fear and protectionism around what might or might not happen tomorrow, because you're going to miss out on all the opportunity right here.
Wow. Your story is so moving. And as a mom, I've certainly had those out of body almost experiences looking at my children and just, having that so deeply connect to me in the way of like, oh my gosh, like this little human is relying on me, and it can really create such motivation and drive in that moment. And we can link that value of our love for our children and our family to whatever it is that we want to achieve. And it can just like superpower our goals in a sense. And so, thank you so much for sharing. And I love the philosophy of mindfulness and really focusing on what we can control in this moment, this, what we do have, or maybe not control, but what is right in front of us, instead of having the shadow of yesterday or the fear of what may come kind of running us. So what I'd love to hear a little bit more about is, what are some examples of ways that we might be able to practice this do-a-day philosophy, and how does our vision for the future and maybe goals that we might have, how do we bring merge that with the do-a-day philosophy of focusing on this one day?
That's two really good questions. So let me start with the second one first, because I think it sets up understanding some situations where do-a-day can play out, and so people can see what it really means in action. So in terms of the future, it's not that you don't care about the future. It's not that you don't have plans for it. That's all fine. But those plans are really goals. So once you have your motivation, that's your why. You want to point your why towards a what, and that's a goal you're trying to achieve. So the first part of my book, each chapter, I call them days, like on the do-a-day theme. Each one is a different life situation that I've been in, and I just share my own personal story so that you can get a feel for the philosophy and practice. But each one of those days is really about some goal. So one of them is I trained for and ran a marathon, and others that I'm a vegan. And so like, how did that happen? Things at work, things in your family life, whatever it is there's something that you want to achieve. So, going back to my weight stories, losing 100 pounds. So I had like 90 something pounds to lose the first time. And that is very much, there's a lot of future in that, because you don't lose 100 pounds right now. And if you think about losing 100 pounds right now, you'll never start. And that's the whole idea, is like, well, it's balancing out the notion that you still have, all this weight to lose, but you're not losing it right now, and that's okay. So I'm aware of what the future entails, and entails getting through the rest of that weight loss and being in a healthier place. without the pressure of, oh my God, how am I going to do it right now? And, what if you slip a little bit? I was coaching someone who was so upset because it was someone's birthday at work and they had cake and the person had a piece of cake and she had lost like 15 or 20 pounds at that point. And she was really beating herself up over it. So she's judging herself from the past. She's like, and now it's all ruined. And what have I done? I was like, well, let's put it in perspective. That piece of cake, if it was a really big piece, was probably 500 or 600 calories. Every pound is 3,500 calories, roughly speaking. So if you've lost 15 or 20 pounds, honestly, that's not even 1%. Do you really think you're not capable of getting back 1%? Do you think you'd even notice the difference of it? If you stepped on the scale this morning, are you certain that the scale was like spinning out of control in the wrong direction? Or maybe it was slightly higher, but probably not even. And it's like, it's this overreaction because of the, no pun intended, the weight that we put on ourselves from either the past mistake or how everything forever is now, always ruined. It's like, look, you know where you're heading. You need to make right choices there. You don't just get off the hook if you make a bad choice. You need to look at it and understand, well, why did I do that? What led me to do that? Maybe it wasn't a bad choice overall. Maybe you made a choice like, while I'm vegan, I'm not vegan 100% of the time. Because like, for instance, on my son's birthday, I'm going to have a piece of cake with him because that's a joy for him, for us all as a family to be doing that. And so I do that. And it doesn't mean like, oh, well, it's all over now because I've ruined the whole. No, it's like, look, I had a piece of cake right now because I made a choice about my son and this moment and also my ability to get back on track. And that was the right choice. It may not mean that I'm 100% vegan, but that's really just a judgment for me and myself. No one else cares. It's not impacting anybody else's life. So keeping mindful of the goal that you're trying to achieve is important. And goals are out there in the future. But you break them down into individual actions in any given moment, and that's how you end up achieving it. You don't do it all at once, and you also don't lose sight of that goal. So it's having your eyes on the future without having the weight of the future on you, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Love that.
This is so cool. So Kimi and I don't know if you know, but we met as fitness and nutrition coaches. And cool. Part of why this business exists is because we had the same revelation that you just shared, where, it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's not just about, eat more protein and work out more and reach your goals like tomorrow, but it's that really holistic approach to, it's not going to happen all at once. And once we can release the judgment and let go of the stress of perfection, like that's when we allow ourselves the space to be who we are in the present moment, every step of the journey. And it's so refreshing to hear that you're coaching in the same way. And thank you for that. That's really incredible.
Well, let me ask you guys something.
Yeah.
With people that you coach, is not eating right or not exercising enough, for those two things, is that really the only thing going on for them?
Never.
It's another symptom of that root cause, right? So I love that you use the word holistic. There's no such thing as like, well, I just need to do this. I just need to lose weight and then everything will be fine. It's like, don't predicate your success on any one individual thing. Create a life that's overall self-reinforcing because you're achieving what you want to achieve. And there's a lot of different aspects. So I find like, for someone had asked me like, what do people tend to come to you for? And I almost couldn't answer because I don't really know. Like the reality is, yes, I do know, but it's more like I don't care. So they'll come to me about losing weight, or they'll come to me about their career or relationship issues or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we're going to address that. But the reality is the path of addressing that is going to fix the other stuff too. So it's like a gateway drug. Like, yeah, weight loss or health, totally important. You're going to find yourself in such a better place holistically by addressing the root cause of, why you felt you needed to lose weight in the first place. And it has nothing to do with your fitness choices. Totally
agree. It's like a siren calling you to do more inner work and healing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
If you want it to last, because it takes that introspection, it takes that honesty with yourself. Otherwise it's like, shake for breakfast, shake for lunch, and a sensible dinner. You can lose weight that way too, but you're going to be right back on the path pretty soon, needing to lose weight again.
That is some truth there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exactly exactly how our business came to be. And Pua and I talk about it all the time, that in the gym environment, on some level as coaches, we were limited by the script that we were given, right? That it was about the nutrition. It was about the fitness aspect. And people would come to us all the time with their weight loss or health goals. And we'd end up immediately talking about, how unfulfilled they felt in their job or their relationships. And when those things get resolved, everything else falls into place. And yeah, as Pua said, it really is just our health challenges are such a blessing because they are guiding us to our best life. And as uncomfortable as they can be, that's when we start doing the exploration and the inner work that we need to truly transform on a deep level.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Wow. I am so fascinated by the do a day, approach to life. And I'd love to hear, could you share more about how you work with clients and what your coaching practice looks like?
Sure. So a lot of the work is really around helping people with their motivation, because once we unlock that, the rest of it really starts to follow. And you get so inspired that you want to do the rest of the work pretty easily. But the motivation is the hardest part to unlock. And for people who've had a really serious, life flashes before your eyes kind of moment, like I did, or like some of the people that I've talked to have, that can make it easier because it forces it. And for other people, well, I haven't had that, so I can't understand what my motivation is, or I can't unlock it. And that's just not true. It just takes the self-work that you may be afraid to do. So most of my efforts are around helping people be honest with themselves. And that means a lot of my coaching work might just be annoying. Someone will give me an answer and I'm like, no, that's not actually motivating you, or that's not what it is. Why do you feel that way? Well, I just told you it's, I go to the gym because I want to feel better, and I feel better when I go to the gym. So that's my motivation. I'm like, no, it's not, because you're not going to the gym. So it's not motivating you. Why do you want to feel better? I'm like, oh, well, because, it's a sign that I'm healthier. And so that's why. I'm like, well, what does being healthier mean to you? Why does that matter? And so it's like this series of questions you get back to. It's like, because my father died when I was 5, and it's not me talking, my dad's still alive, but I lost a parent when I was a little kid, and I don't want that to happen to my child. I'm like, that's a different kind of motivation. That's a lot more powerful than just like, oh yeah, feel better today. So it is pushing people to get under that surface level piece of it. And that's a huge chunk of my work. And then from there, the next step is we need to create some goals. And this is where I do get specific to the reason why they came to me. So if it's about health and wellness, then our goals are going to be around health and wellness. A lot of my work since the book came out has been around career coaching. So it's people who have sort of woken up later in life in their 40s or 50s, and they're maybe they're out of a job, or they see their job going down the tubes, or they're just suddenly they realize how miserable they are in it. I want something new. I need a new job. Get me a new job. I'm like, we'll get there, but we're not going to answer that right now. And so we talk through the motivation piece of it, and we talk through, why they work in the first place. And a lot of it's their kids are older at that point, or maybe they don't have kids, but there's something around the financial responsibility. It's because I'm the breadwinner, or because I have to pay the bills, or college tuition, whatever it is. And well, why does that matter? And a lot of times, you get down into the meat of it, of what drives them. And then we start to focus on, okay, if that's what's important to you, here's what we need to look for in a job. And so here are the goals we're going to set around that to set you up to find that. So there'll be a big goal around, finding them a job that speaks to that true motivation. And then there's specific actions within that every day there's something they're going to do. I was working with someone who was pretty fiscally irresponsible. And they were also very impulsive, and had gotten themselves into a bind with some real estate where they were buying a new house and they weren't selling their old one yet because that had fallen through. And they felt such an obligation to make that next buy purchase that they were going to super extend themselves, and they just inherited some money from their parents, and they were going to spend all of that and give it to the builder. Like it wasn't a good scene. And actually, the moment that they signed the P&S, they would technically be bankrupt.
Oh my.
And, pretty serious situation. So what I talked to them about was, all right, you're going to have to back out of that house, and we're going to talk about that. And that was obviously an incredibly hard conversation, because there's all this sense of like, how am I going to look in front of people? And I've told everyone I'm moving, and the builder's expecting things. And I was like, why does that matter to you? And so we had a really good conversation about why, like, the builder being upset has to matter to them, like to the point that you want to be out on the street because you don't want the builder to be upset. Mm. You've got kids in the situation. Well, they're adult kids. Your sense is they're just going to bail you out. What does that mean to them? And are you actually going to be more upset with that? And have you thought about, how that might alter your relationship with your kids? Now, what's more important to you? The relationship with your kids, or what this random builder thinks of you who you don't know at all? So it was sort of like exposing those things. But from an action standpoint, there were some very key next steps around, we looked at all of the spending that was going on and identified a few things that were really not necessary, but quite significant. And we were able to free up about $2,000 a month in totally unnecessary spending, at least for the next 6 months. Maybe long term, some of that needs to be in there. But, like there was an office space the person was renting that they hadn't been to in months. So it's like, okay, that's $1,400 a month that you don't need to spend, and you have an open-ended lease, so you can get out now. So it's like, you start to look around, and I didn't stop any of that spending. They did. I just helped them see where their pockets and get them to agree, like, yeah, I can do that. And it's not, you have to do this for the rest of your life. It's just today, I just have to make this choice. And once you start making those choices, I would say success begets success. So like you win your way to your ultimate goal. So that person's goal was not just not to be on the brink of bankruptcy, but to be fiscally or financially independent, which they'd never been. And this is a person in their 50s. So never been independent, always been bailed out by their parents or a significant other or whatever. So once they started to actually have their own independence, all of a sudden it was like the most exciting thing they'd ever felt. And that was really cool to watch. But it did take some really, really tough face yourself kind of moments. And I give them credit for engaging in that. It was not easy, but then also helping them identify some very key, like do a day right now, right here. This is what you're going to do type actions. And that could be, going to the gym. Like you just need to get up and go work out today. Or you just need to, make your lunch so that you're not tempted to go out for pizza with everybody. Or you need to, stop yourself from yelling when your kid does X. And here's some of the tools to do that, or whatever it might be. Some very specific actions to start to change the situation. Because once you see what's going on in a better way, you're going to be drawn to that pretty quickly. And then it becomes self-sustaining.
Totally. Wow. That is so awesome. I love your really non-judgmental approach to all of this. And it really is just about creating awareness, right? Around the way that we've been living. And a lot of times it's really just easy to live on the surface because, as you said, digging down into why can be really, really hard. And sometimes we don't want to do the hard stuff, but it's so important to go there. And so thank you. That is such a cool service that you provide for your clients.
Yeah, it's not what society does at all. Like we're in a very surface level, fast and move on kind of. So it's we're not conditioned that way anymore. And your point on non-judgmental, whether I'm judgmental or not, and I try not to be. The only person whose judgment matters is your own. And what I found is generally we all have far too little compassion for ourselves. And that, I talk about motivation as a foundation. There's something beneath that. It's the ground that motivation is built on. You've got to have self-compassion. You need to stop judging yourself or feel the need to put yourself down. Like everyone is so self-deprecating and we think it's funny, but it's really damaging. I was saying these things about my wife being such an inspiration. I know if she hears this, she's going to get really uncomfortable. But like, it's okay to be amazing. It's okay to be a beautiful human being. And we're so quick to put ourselves down, or like you yell at your kid and you see yourself as a bad parent. You might have made a bad choice. That doesn't make you a bad parent. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to be a bad parent forever. So we all really need to be much more compassionate with ourselves. And from there, we'll be compassionate with others. But you can't be if you're sitting there in judgment of yourself all the time, because you'll be miserable.
God, I hope every human on the planet hears this interview.
Yes.
This is amazing. And it's like you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help others do the same, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are you to say that, oh, you're such an amazing person? And there's that thing, right, where you're just like, oh no, I don't thank me. I'm not amazing, but you are. And like, then there's that battle of like, who's less amazing, right? Like, what is that? But
we love that as a society. It's like, oh, I only slept this much last night. Oh, really? Yeah, I wish I was you. I only slept this much. It's like, why are you proud of this?
Yes. Or the like, oh, I'm so busy. I have so much going on. Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for bringing that to the surface and bringing awareness around that. We totally agree.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Bryan, what is next for you?
So I got a couple of big things in the works. So I love getting this message out there. Like, that's why I wrote the book. It's not to sell books. I don't know if you guys know or your listeners know, but the average book sells 240 copies a year. So I didn't go into this being like, I'm going to retire, write one book and I'm done. I wrote the book literally just like, I love helping people change their lives. And even if I coach 24 hours a day or 48 hours a day, if I found some way to do that, I still like, I can't help as many people as I want to. And I get such a charge out of it. So I wrote the book to get the message out. Another way to do that is shows like this, but then it's also speaking. So I'm getting out on the speaking circuit as well, but I just got confirmed for a TEDx talk in March. So that's one of the big things that I'm focused on, which is awesome. I'm really excited for that because it's a great venue and they do a really good job of spreading the message. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
And then I just literally like last week started work on my next book. And that's probably going to take longer than the first one took, but that's okay because there's a little bit more research into it. It's based on Buddhism, and I love studying Buddhism anyway, but I really want to make sure that I get that foundation right. But it's about solving relationship dysfunction, which I feel like if Do a Day is about anything, it's about relationship dysfunction with yourself. Right? It's that compassion point. And once you get through that, then you're ready to start solving the other dysfunctional relationships you're a part of. And so that's where I see the next book stepping in. So I'm so excited for that, but it's hard because I'm so anxious to get it out because I've been using it with people I coach and I know it works. Mm-hmm. But I've got to put the time in to really write it carefully. And so that's a good challenge, but I'm excited for that. So hopefully next summer, but don't quote me on that.
It's out there. It's in the universe now.
Yeah. Well, who knows when is next summer? I didn't say what year.
Right.
Like next summer from when?
Good save.
As time and energy coaches and as entrepreneurs and having to do a lot of creative work, we're always so fascinated by people's writing habits. So as you're working on writing this book, can you share with us like what a typical day looks like for you and when you get your creative and that deep work done?
No, that's a great question. So I happen to travel a lot for work, which means I have a lot of time on airplanes. I wrote 35% of Do a Day the morning after I had the idea I knew what Do a Day was, but to write a book about it, I was flying back from California to Boston and, I just banging away on my keyboard the whole time. So I do a lot of writing while I'm on planes. I write a weekly column for Inc. magazine and I tend to bang out a few articles while I'm on flights because I get the inspiration and I write from my soul. So, I can just I don't need Wi-Fi or anything. I just go off and write. So a lot of my book writing happens on airplanes. I just kind of get in a zone. Otherwise, while I'm traveling, I've got time alone. And so I'll also write then. For some reason, I'm not great at writing at home, although I did write quite a bit of Do a Day at my son's karate classes, which I don't know why. It's just it worked out. So yeah, I find myself in interesting situations writing, and you'd think in the comfort of my own moment would come easier, but I don't know why it just doesn't. And that's fine. I got the message out there, but I write about my own inspiration. I'm not writing like factual accounts of something. So I think it is about like when your heart is there, you flow with it.
Love it. Yeah. Writing that inspiration, right? And also I think there's something too, kind of getting out of your normal environment when we're doing creative work too. And kind of just letting the words and kind of spirit flow through us. It helps to not be thinking about the laundry that has to be done if we're in our house, right?
Yeah. Go to your proverbial karate class.
Right. Awesome. Well, this is so wonderful. Where can our listeners find out? Where can they get the book? Where can they find out more about you?
So I put everything at the Do A Day website. So it's doadaybook.com. So it's a book called Do A Day. Hopefully it's easy to remember. Doadaybook.com. And there's links to purchase the book there. There's links to my Inc. articles there. You can see about what's going on with podcast appearances, with speaking stuff. You can sign up for coaching. And then there's and I should say, you can find all the social media links. So I've got two main accounts I use. One is at Do A Day Book on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But then personally, I use at Newbody, NEWBODI. That's my main Twitter account and Instagram as well. Two specific links for you guys I wanted to share. One is I'd love to offer the book at a discount for your readers. Like ebook's the cheapest way to get it, but I know a lot of people like that physical copy. So to offer, I don't know if I just said your readers, I meant listeners, but to offer your listeners $4 off the paperback, so they can just go to doadaybook.com/bestlifediscount. And if you're curious about starting on this path and trying to discover your why and your motivation, whether you want to hire me as a coach or not, I put out some of the key things that I tend to do with people to start them on the journey in this coaching exercise I use. So if you go to doadaybook.com/the exercise, you get a couple page PDF with just some questions and some space to write down some answers. You're not doing it for anyone but yourself. So be as honest as you can be, and it'll help get you started on that journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's such a great gift to our listeners.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for having me. This is so great to talk about this stuff with people who are just in sync with it. So I love that.
Totally. Thank you. This is amazing.
Well, we'll be sure to include everything in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing some time with us here, and best wishes to you. And thank you for the beautiful work you're doing in the world.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
If you are a business with 1 to 10 employees ready to reduce overwhelm and create more work-life satisfaction, reach out to us about our time and energy Best Life Ever Small Business Coaching. In our coaching program, we give you the tools, strategies, and support you need to stress less so you can serve more. We have limited openings for this year, so take inspired action now to apply for your 3-month coaching program with us. Email us for more info at aloha@bestlifeever.buzz.